Welcome to Creative Health Tech, your dose of strategic creativity from the minds pushing the boundaries of the health tech industry. We are your hosts, Ralph Marquez and Felipe Silveira, founders of Mole.
And today we want to dive into the challenges of building visual narratives that connect and empower audiences. So joining us is Winnie Hefner, an incredibly talented creative director at Equip. So Winnie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. We'd like to start, of course, getting to know more about our guests. So tell us a little bit more about you, your work as creative director, about Equip, and also how you got to this point in your career.
Absolutely. So my name is Winnie Hefner. I use she, her pronouns. And I am the creative director over at Equip Health. And just a little lowdown, Equip is a leading virtual eating disorder treatment program on a mission to make eating disorder treatment accessible to anybody who needs it. So we are currently based in the US and we trade all 50 states. And it's been just such a journey to watch Equip grow the way it has. When I joined, we were just treating kids, actually, was our primary focus. And we
Mm-hmm.
just expanded to adults last year and have just kind of been gearing it up, making sure it's all set up and creatively on its way to make sure that adults feel welcome. And as to how I got here, I kind of stumbled my way through my career. I started as a production designer at an advertising agency and, just through connections and being at the right place at the right time, just kind of found my way into being an art director. I worked at not Leo Burnett specifically, but their conglomerate that owns a lot of
Mm-hmm.
different ones, Publicis, excuse me. And from there, just kind of kept getting, myself to different levels and really challenging myself once I got there and kind of like, okay, like I feel like I've mastered being a senior art director. Like, what's next? And then, just kind of kept going, moved in-house when I
Mm-hmm.
was, a couple years ago, moved in-house and then just kind of kept the momentum of just exploring, growing and seeing what else was out there in terms of just career growth and where I could go from there. And wound up at Equip because I am transitioning. I am transitioning from male to female.
Mm-hmm.
And, part of the Equip mission is helping people feel themselves in their bodies. And that was really the guiding force behind why I wanted to come work at Equip. If I'm going to be doing this and I have to,
Yeah.
work and have a paycheck, I'd rather be helping people kind of get in tune with their body as well. I'm also getting in tune with my body. So it was kind of the
Yeah.
leading force behind it all.
It's something that is also very personal for you as well, not just like jobs perspective and work perspective, but also on personal level, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the big thing with Equip is it's all about, lived experience is a huge thing that we like to incorporate into what we do, and, it's not quite apples to apples, but,
Yeah.
it's in the same vein and, there's still that same structure of just getting familiar with your body and listening to your body's needs and, moving forward with that, so it just linked up well, and it's really just been a huge driving force behind why I do
Nice.
the work I do with Equip and why I've stayed there so long.
Nice. And you mentioned this transition of Equip from treating kid child and then moving to of course adults. How challenging was it creatively on this communication between these two different demographics? I believe are very distinct in
But yeah.
terms of how it can communicate with, especially visually speaking. So how did you went through this challenge? Like what are the things that you remember that used to work before, but now with the new Disney Tigers doesn't work anymore? Or what are the things you had to adapt? Just tell us a little more about like these specific moments in Equip.
Yeah. So when I started, again, like I said, we were just treating kids and our branding was very, I wouldn't say like child oriented, but it was really like, fun,
Hmm.
curvy shapes and bright
Yeah.
colors. And it was really geared towards, I would believe the initial thinking was to really incorporate more child friendly graphics and visuals. And really part of what we've been exploring this year with me at the helm has been really how do we evolve our brand without degrading what we've already created as established brand for Equip, but evolve it in a space where the graphics are still using those curvatures, but it feels a little less childlike.
Hmm.
It feels a little bit more, a wide range of inclusivity across ages, and it's been through just trial and error of like, okay, this curve feels nice, but we can like really zoom in and make it feel like a really nice, sleek graphic approach versus more bubbly and
Mm-hmm.
kind of these like floating shapes that feel quite kiddish and welcoming, but still maintain that welcoming feature, but make it a little bit more mature, I suppose.
Yes, so
Yeah,
still keeping within the brands, but like evolving it, like opening it up to
Exactly.
welcome this new demographic that is coming to Equip.
Yeah, and just pushing the limits, that's kind of been the big thing that
Yeah.
I encourage a lot with my team is like, okay, this looks fantastic. Like I love this and it feels very on brand, but like how can we push it to be a little bit more sleek or a little bit more a little bit more polished in a way that like it might catch an adult's eye versus a child's eye.
Nice.
yeah. Actually, like regarding this, because like I feel that it doesn't matter like if you're going through a transition of audience, but also like brands, they have to evolve. Like time goes by, things change, the world changes, so we need to adapt. And being able to evolve and change is really hard. And as a creative director, like how do you usually like balances this creativity with the requirement that you have, especially like also in the health environment? Like there's a lot of compliance. So like how usually like you feel like your team can create and can maintain this creative edge while meeting the requirements that you have.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I love this question because it's part of my favorite thing about being a creative person is, when you come up against these walls that are put in place for a reason, like it kind of gives
Yeah.
you the opportunity to really tap into your creativity. And like, to me, having this wall here is like, okay, how are we going to leave our mark? Um, and decorate this wall that feels like it's a part of our brand, leaving our mark as Equip at this barrier, but still, remain its integrity. And I think that's really when you get those creative juices flowing because it's like, okay, we can give up or we can find a creative solution to this. And that's always been
Mm,
like the fun part of working in this field is like, okay, what can we do? Then what can we do for this that makes it still feel fun and feel evolve from what we've done before? And it's never a competition. It's more so just like how do we be better than we were yesterday? And when it
Yeah,
comes to those
yeah.
compliances. So yeah, that'd be my thing is like that's really when we get those really creative sparks to just have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, and also like I feel that like because like a lot of times we encounter some barriers, and a lot of times like people might go with the kind of the easier way, like but if you stick with with the original style that you had, and you were trying to transition something that can communicate with both the adult and the like younger audience, and I feel like those kind of things are the things that push you into becoming something unique. Because like
Exactly.
otherwise you would just go and follow everybody else and you'll be just another brand communicating the same things. So I feel like the fact that like you're pushing the team to, okay, we have this challenge, but it doesn't mean that like we need to stop. We can adapt, we can evolve. I feel that that's really important for you to stand out.
Yeah, and we have such a great team of people that work on the creative and content team. Like it's just fun to watch people rise to the challenge and really see what they come up with. Because, I believe in approaching creative direction as collaboratively as possible. Like yes, I am the lead creative and I am the stakeholder for the creativity, but at the end of the day, it's not just me, it's my team. And so I think the best way to do that is really to give autonomy to your creative teams and kind of give them the problem to solve and not give them the solution. And to me, that's always been like the best way to kind of find those like little gems of creativity, especially when you're up against
yeah.
compliances where you're like, oh crap, like we can't really go this direction anymore, but like we still have a gem here that we can work with. And like, how can we make it work with this barrier that we're running into? So it's just really fun to watch it come to life and see how the team can spark the creative ideas.
Yeah.
It's nice what you mentioned on how you direct the team, not just, let's say, giving structures and order, but letting them to use the creativity because of course if they're in the creative team, they are really creative people.
Yeah.
And sometimes in companies they don't have a culture that foster that. And I feel like by making this approach of that's the problem we have, how creatively we're gonna, face this problem, solve this, it not only empowers our team so they can also be more self-sufficient in a way, but also gives you better directions and better solutions for the problem than otherwise you would have if you just rely on yourself to make all the creative decisions within the whole company, right?
Yeah, very much. And creativity is not just a creative team's saying. I think creativity stems everywhere. Like, we've got a PR team that is super creative. We have an internal
Yeah.
communications team that has creative
Everybody's
sparks.
creative. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so it's really about just like that teamwork and that collaboration and letting go of that ego with creativity of that, like, oh, I'm the creative
Mhm.
director, I'm supposed to be solving all this. It's like, no, like I can give my ideas and I can come with ideas, but the point of it all is to kind of come together and be like, okay, let's throw all of our creative ideas together, see what works best, and then from there, start to build the best new creative journey around this pivot.
Great. You also notice that the brand, the Equip, they really value diversity. Of course, to have wide audience when treating kids and adults. But in general, there's a lot of diversity in the marketing and communication piece that you create. What are like the main rules and best practices that the team has to take in order to to deliver those video representation that they genuinely speak to this diversity? Because we know like it's not easy trying to communicate with such a big audience. But your solution at Equip is so awesome that you can actually benefit all this wide audience. But
Yeah, that's a great question. First and foremost, like part of Equip's mission is to make sure that everybody has access to eating disorder treatment. So diversity is, I think, one of the most important things when it comes to the creative team and making sure that we understand that, you know, we can't just sell to one demographic because it's not one demographic who suffers from this. It's everybody. So, unless we have specific data about a specific target we're trying to reach with this creative piece,
mhm,
I encourage my team to approach it with a new sense for every piece of creative they work on. So, you know, I don't want people to think, oh, well, I used, a person from this demographic in the previous piece, so I should use this person for this one. And like, it's more so just like how, like we treat every piece as something new to be inclusive. So, is it a way that we can include somebody over the age of 50? Is it somebody that we can include from a specific race? Is it somebody from a
mhm.
specific gender identity or sexual orientation? And so, our main rule of thumb is just to constantly keep that cycling through. Like, we don't want to just stick to one demographic throughout any piece of collateral. It needs to be very inclusive, both in shape, sizes, ages. Like, we want to make sure
Yeah,
everybody's in there. And the other piece is really just to make sure that, my team has everything they need to pull from. And so when it comes to like photo shoots, I really try to lead with empathy when we're on a photo shoot. Like, hey, like here's kind of the direction of like if you as this character that we're trying to capture in this photo shoot, like here's what you're going through. And we like to make sure that we kind of capture that range of emotions because there isn't a range of emotions that comes through with, a
yeah,
journey like any sort of recovery. There are days where you're gonna feel like you're on top of the world, and there's gonna be days where the eating disorder is just so loud that you're really struggling, and we wanna make sure that that is captured in photography, not to inflict pain, but to really just show empathy and really kind of show people, like, "We see you, we know what you're going through." And, I don't have eating disorder, history, but, just standing as equipped from a brand perspective, we wanna make sure that the brand is seen as, like, this empathetic, entity that essentially just sees people and acknowledges that the pain they're going through, and just give them solutions of ways to help, them work through it. So, I think empathy is the biggest part when it comes to capturing those assets
yeah.
and making sure that we're using data to help drive those things as well, because Equip is a huge, it's all data driven. Nothing is, based off of, "Oh, I feel like this." It's, "Well, actually, the data says this." So, we like to make sure that we have a library, an arsenal of any possible creative visual that we need to have.
And
Yeah.
you
And
produce like visuals of all types as well. So your website, you have both pictures, illustrations, and all
Mhm.
this. So I feel like from a, let's say, an audience perspective, someone just looking at Equip's brand and website, that that have you also search for this diversity as in terms of technique on visual
Mhm.
representation, right?
Yes.
And like not just sticking to, oh no, we're gonna be only use illustration with this style and that's it, or only pictures of those kind of people. So it seems like it's part of the creative team as well, or for the brand to mix those different styles and type of visual representation as part of building this diversity in the brand.
Yeah, very much so, and the illustrations do play a good part in it where, it's sometimes people don't wanna see themselves. This is a rough journey, and sometimes they don't wanna put a face to the way they're feeling, so there are times where we use illustrations that are faceless because it really helps with,
Hmm.
that ambiguity and that anonymity, or however that word is, onomatopoeia. Anonymity, and so
Yeah,
we wanna make sure that that's also captured, and it's actually really fun because part of next year's, goal for the creative team is to revisit our illustrations and see if there's
nice.
a way to still, like, toe that line of being respectful of anonymity, but also making sure that there's a face when it's needed, and so it's a fine balance we're working through.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
also like that's one of those kind of things that you mentioned, like kind of an interesting creative challenge that you have to solve. And you know that
Mhm.
like after you get through this, you're going to have something way more powerful.
Exactly.
Yeah. And honestly, like I already feel that like the entire branding of the website, mixing the websites with illustrations and also like the copy feels like it's not like also like since you're being really like inclusive and about everybody's like needs and like situations, it feels really inclusive. Like I was looking at the website the other day and like I felt like kind of in a cozy place. And I feel that like that's really important for anything that we are talking about, like that
Yeah.
deals with mental health. Like you want to feel secure. And I feel that all the communication that you have really translates that really well.
Thank you. That's such a huge compliment, and, I'll relay that to everybody because it truly is. It's a big group effort. We have our content team who really is just so thorough and thoughtful with the language we use and ways that we approach different audiences. So it's always just, again, just such a treat to be, at this level and get to observe how, this team comes together to really just create an inclusive, secure environment for people who need it.
And it only works when you have like a team that is it's the best people in the team, but it's a mixed team as well. Because
Yeah.
communication is not only the text we have there on the website, what we're saying, but it's a combination for everything. So
Yeah.
from design elements, of course, the copy and the pictures you have, the illustrations, when all comes together and you have this nice mix that is not like a is a mix in a good way. It's not chaos. It's like a order, but with
Yes.
different pieces. They're not the same pieces, but they're all put together that create this sense of, like Raf was saying, like a cozy place, a cozy environment.
Yeah.
And the brand, I believe, helps to support that, which is also what Equip wants to portray as well, as this inviting place for the
Yes.
audience. So I like this correlation between branding communication you've been building there to what is the company's mission in the end.
Yeah.
And I think that
Absolutely.
like you mentioned that like you went to work at Equip because you felt like that they like you were supported and that you like kind of you related with the brand. And I feel like also like the work that it like that you output, like it has a lot to like if the people that are doing the work they believe in the mission, they believe in what they're doing. I feel that like everything kind of translate more easily and more naturally and
Yes.
feels more, let's say, like literally inclusive.
Yes, absolutely, and I think that really does stem from just the brand as a whole, like, the company as a whole. Like, truly, Equip
Hmm.
is dedicated to growing and being more diverse and being more inclusive, and, you really feel that when it comes to the company itself where, we put people in positions that are not necessarily, a typical person to be in those situations. I haven't met a trans creative director before, but Equip was dedicated to finding diversity, and nobody's perfect. Where everybody's always looking to grow and improve and do it better the next time. And I think that's just a really big thing that Equip does, is really just try to make sure that everybody feels at home and feels safe. Whether you work at Equip or whether you're a patient at Equip, it's really just the dedication to giving people and welcoming everybody into, the safe space.
Yeah. And something that, like I would like to ask you because like you mentioned, and it's something that like we find it really interesting and would like to know a little bit more, which is the data. You mentioned like all the decisions you make. Obviously, like there's a lot of also like I feel that the fact that you have a diverse team allows you to be able to deliver more diverse solutions and more inclusive solutions. But there's data, and I feel like data is really important. So I'd like to understand a little bit about like the data from the use that you have of the app or the service, or is this like you have kind of let's say like a control group, like somebody that you reach out usually to check those, and like where those data usually are more used in the visuals, in the copy, or in you like everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't really have an answer to how we collect the data. Unfortunately, that's not really part of my team, and I don't really
Yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
access to
It
that.
was just curiosity, like
Uh,
basically, like who are the person that you are like if you're having interviews with people, or if just kind of data that you have from the use of the software.
yeah. So I can give a bit more of like a specific, target audience. And so like when we first launched to adults, part of our campaign was doing billboards. And it was our first time doing billboards. It was, I think I was 2.5 months into my time at Equip when they were like, "Hey, we're doing billboards." And I was like, "When?" And then they were like, "In a month. So get ready."
Get prepared.
Yeah. They were like, "I hope you're ready because we're about to hit the ground running." And so we had really specifically looked at areas where we weren't getting where we saw like the least amount of traction with eating disorder treatment. And we ended up, I believe, and again, don't quote me on this, it could be incorrect, but we put them in Atlanta, I believe, specifically because we wanted the Black community to understand that, like, this is a disease that affects everybody, including the Black community. And so we wanted to make sure that it was a diverse range of photography in terms of the audience. So whether it was a gay Black couple, a lesbian Black couple, a couple with interracial relationships, a couple that weren't. And,
Mhm.
it was just making sure that we had a nice diverse piece that not only went just to the Black audience, but to like other individuals who might see it in Atlanta. And we had a bunch of different aspects. And that's really where we pull that data from is like, okay, like here's where we could be better as a company and how we could really make sure that our services are getting out there. So let's be strategic and thoughtful about the visuals we're using, where we're putting our
Mhm.
placements. And that was a huge collaboration between the creative team and the marketing team and the data team. We have a data and research team that really is top notch. They're all fantastic.
Also, and to follow up on that, especially that you mentioned the billboard, we know that you're interested as well in this experience in blending traditional and digital advertising in general for campaigns. And how did you decide like the right balance between the two for Equip's brand? Like, are there any certain elements that work best when you're communicating digital versus traditional spaces? Do you see any difference actually, or even the placement of like you mentioned that one? How do you see like this mix of traditional and digital? How they work and help to enhance Equip's
Yeah.
brand?
Yeah. I think for Equip, we do like to make sure that we're hitting both traditional and digital. I do find that we primarily play in the digital space mostly because we are virtual. The part of the awesome perk of Equip is is the fact that it's not disruptive to somebody's life. They don't have to just, upheave their
Mm-hmm.
life, go someplace, isolate themselves, and be away from their family. They get to do it at home where they have their support system and their loved ones. And so we do primarily hit a lot of those digital channels because that's where those people are going to see it. Um, and so I would say we want to be really strategic about the way we approach our marketing plans. And so I do know that like quite a bit is digital and mostly the traditional print oriented is more so for outreach to providers. So when it comes to collateral pieces, we want to make sure that it's pretty photography heavy, making sure
Mhm.
the color schematic or colors that we use that print well. And so I do kind of tend to lean more towards photography and more of the muted colors for a lot of our printed collateral just because it prints
Mhm.
nicely. But with digital, we do tend to use a lot more of our bright colors. We have activator colors that are these nice neon colors that just look beautiful in digital spaces. And we can't really utilize those in the more traditional area because they just don't print that well. And so it's really just finding that balance and really utilizing the elements that the brand has in those digital spaces that really amplify the brand colors and the specific pops that we get to have with, and making the print more just traditional and keeping it pretty simple. Simple's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, for sure. I think like at the end of the day, getting the message across
Mhm.
is the most important. Like doesn't matter how you
Exactly.
do it. Like if you can find a way to reach the audience and communicate with them,
Exactly.
that's what matters.
Exactly.
And most of the time, simple is way harder to
Better.
do.
Yeah, is that
It's
like
better and harder
less
to
is more.
produce.
Yes.
Yeah,
And it is, and we really did find that with the billboard specifically. We have less than 5 seconds typically to get somebody's attention with, like, a billboard,
Yeah,
especially when it's, like, on a highway or, something.
yeah,
So you gotta make it concise, you gotta make the messaging as clear as possible and give them the information that they can digest in 5 seconds. For that, we really had to simplify, and we really had to keep things as bare bones as possible just to make sure that, the messaging and what Equip does and the mission were clear.
I think that's another of those types of walls that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Those challenges, and how you face that is to have to make this communication clear, as we're saying.
Yeah.
I was about to say, we tend to mention how social media attention span is like so low, but if you think about billboards on the highway,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
not so far from it,
yeah,
right?
and it's way more dangerous.
Exactly, exactly. You don't wanna,
Yeah,
like, give up somebody a paragraph to read while they're driving, like, "Oh, Equip does what?" You're like, "No, no." Give it, really hidden, and, it's just, I know I'm a broken record, but it's just so I'm just so grateful to work at a company with the collaboration that we have, because it was truly like those billboards were a huge group effort between the marketing and creative
Hmm,
team,
hmm.
and, just we just have such a good team to put together of just people who wanna get the message out there, really help people, and really get the mission out.
yeah, perfect. And like looking ahead, let's say like 5 years, like how you see, because like health tech has been getting more and more, let's say like mature. And like you can see like before we had a lot of companies. Now we know that like investors, they started to select really well who they're going to put their money. Companies are dying, a lot of them are surviving. Like what's next?
Yeah.
And like we'd like to hear like from the creative side, how do you feel that the creative strategy, like kind of the role that you play in the next 5 years for businesses?
Yeah. I mean, I would like to think we're gonna, save the day nonstop as creatives. And I think we do add a lot of value that I think companies are beginning to realize we bring, especially as, a creative team is, oh, like you have like really creative ways of solving problems. And I think it's gonna be one really human led, in my opinion. I think the more and more we get into this realm of, people not liking the polished look, that people want that nitty gritty human aspect
Yeah,
of branding and, visuals and creativity. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of that come through in future companies and how they're approaching their creative. And, there's always going to be that balance. Like, how much do you want to lean into the tech side? How much do you want to lean into the human side? But I really think we're going to start seeing a lot more human led things and less polished branding, which has, from when I worked on social nonstop, that was like the bread and butter was, the polished videos were nice to have, and yeah, they looked great, but
yeah,
they really want, the audience and people really do just want to like see other human beings experiencing life and it being led through those lenses of just human experience. So I really do think that's going to come through. And in terms of the creative team, I think creatives are going to really be a vital part to that. I think we really need to tap into creatives and really, look at them as creative individuals. And again, creative comes from everybody. Like I'm not saying that we
hmm,
are the end all be all of creativity, but having a seat at the table, I think does really help, especially when you're in those developing stages and really inclusive with who you're inviting, not just in terms of gender and age and race. It's also about just like, departmentally who's at that table and who's chiming in with ideas, and because sometimes it's just the simplest little adjustment to one thing really does make the big impact. So it's just tapping into those resources when it happens.
Yeah,
so I like what I said about the polished versus like a more human thing, and
Yeah.
feel like whenever we see tech, we think more of like this cold thing,
Mhm.
those big tech companies, taking over the world and all this. But we are in health tech, and that is part of this
Yes.
world that is like really, really human. And the communication should follow this as well, like you're saying, like the
Yeah.
more human communication in a way of how we approach, patient users or audiences, but also how we present, everything, information, how we represent people, how we get everyone to feel inclusive and included and part in this journey as well. So I really
Yeah.
resonate with that. I should believe that like tech doesn't mean we need to go to codes,
Yes.
polish it, like really polish it in a way that looks mechanic, you know?
Yes.
That like that the imperfections is part of what like make us human and we need to
Exactly.
embrace them in a way, like especially because we are solving real problems in health tech. So we know that not everyone is perfect and they never gonna be. That's why communication doesn't need to try to aim to be this perfect rounded shape thing
Yes. You
and
want that
allow
little
it.
detour.
Yeah, yeah. It's sexy in the end, right? Like it gets everyone like feel more connected when you have those details.
Absolutely, yeah, and this is such an important part.
Yeah, and I really like what you mentioned about we usually think like we have the creative team, we have the creative ops, whatever. But at the end of the day, everybody's creative. So like I feel like as this, let's say like this role of creativity in the field gets more recognized and gets to a seat on the table for decision making of the business, I feel like it kind of becomes a little bit of like what I mean, like when like since Equip is so into diversity, it brings diverse people and all those people are able to make content to make anything more inclusive and diverse as well and creative because also I feel like a big part of creativity is the fact like we all have like different like we all had different lives, we came from different places, we had different experiences, and at the end of the day like when we get together to discuss something, that's when creativity happens. Like each person has a different perspective, and also a lot of times like we can block certain communication problems, certain triggers, because like we all experience something different. But I feel like this kind of, if we like if the companies they embrace creativity in terms of like creating thinkers and creative strategy, then it also becomes part of the DNA. And I
Yes.
feel that that's really important because like then you empower people that are not in the, let's say, creative side of the business to also be creative and to also like feel empowered to kind of get to a barrier and find a way to fix that.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to, like, encourage that, and I think
Hmm.
that is really, you know and it is a fine line to toe,
Sure.
it's really opening the doors to that creative feedback, but also maintaining the integrity of the creative as the field expert, like, we get things from people where I'm just like, "That would not look good, but I love what you're thinking," and so I think it's really important as creatives for us to also, like, set that boundary because I think,
Yeah.
a lot of the issues that creatives run into is feeling like we're just producers, like, we're not actually strategic
Mm.
thinkers, like, we're in charge of just the production of what people are thinking, and we send it out to the world, and that's never the case, every creative makes a decision intentionally, and what I'm really pushing for with Equip, especially with our, cross stakeholders, is really this idea that, again, like I said, give us the problem to solve, and we'll come up with the creative solution to make it happen. And so I'm just such a firm believer that that's the best way to communicate any form
Mhm.
of disagreement or anything is just to really, lead with curiosity. Like, hey, why did you choose this picture? Why did you phrase this way? Because I think when we don't get that other perspective, what we're doing is
Yeah.
blocking off, this entire different avenue of a thought or approach to something. And I try really hard to, and I'm just as guilty of doing it. There are some times where I'm just like, hey, this photo is not working, just use this one. And, there are times where, I catch myself after I've done that and I've been like, oops, I didn't lead with curiosity like I'm asking everybody else to. I think it's going to take some time for just the world to get used to that as I'm looking at the creative team as their they're strategic and thought partners as well. And not that Equip doesn't do that. I'm not saying that by any means. They have all been very respectful of
It's more like more companies doing that.
Yeah.
yes, just that more inclusivity across the board. And as the health tech landscape, seeing more of that. And I think we're getting there. And I really do think that we're coming to an age where people are recognizing like, oh, like creatives are actually, they do have some of this, and they really should be at the table when we have these conversations. And it's just really exciting to be a part of that growth.
Yeah, I love that. So thanks so much for sharing experience with us, Winnie. Like it was a amazing talk. Just went so fast here. Not sure for those listening, but for us, like feels like but just for 5 minutes talking here.
I
Uh,
know.
it was amazing to learn more like about all like creativity, design, the inclusivity, visual strategies, and everything you've been developing at Equip. And if anyone watching, listening to us, if they want to connect with you, where should they go? Is there like LinkedIn or website, Instagram? What is your preferred way of communication?
Absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just look up Winnie Hefner. And I would love to connect and chat more.
Great.
Awesome. So thanks for joining us. Subscribe to keep up with our next episodes. And if there's someone you'd like to see in the podcast, let us know at CHT Creative Health Tech at mowi.studio. See ya.